I found this odd, as he was a pretty good-looking guy in a sidekick to the leading man way. He was educated, had a well-paying job, and was creative without being pretentious or flaky. He tucked away his skateboard and put on his big boy pants before he turned 20. He never wore a ball cap that I know of, never took up more room on the bus or on a plane than he needed to. His only fault, over-enthusiasm. His only tattoo, a martini glass on his left upper arm with the words, Nick and Nora, inside. I think Myrna Loy's witty, bantering Nora Charles was his idea of an ideal woman. In many ways, Zoltan belonged to a bygone era. We grew up together in Calgary before my aunt and uncle moved to the West Coast in pursuit of real estate and weather when he was 14. Even back then, Zoltan was crazy about movies. He called them the pictures, as if he were a 50s studio boss rather than an early 90s junior high kid. He saw Groundhog Day 7 times before it was even out on video. For grade 8 English, he wrote an essay on historical anachronisms in The Princess Bride. He was that kid, but mostly he liked the really old stuff. The summer Zoltan turned 11, he made movies in the alley behind his house using an old RCA camcorder. I was a year and a half older and always cast as the femme fatale, offing his nerdy friends with a plastic handgun, poison. They drank the Kool-Aid, I improved, having no idea what it actually meant. A Frisbeed garbage can lid, or just a quick killing look. At the end of each shoot, he let me do my Gene Simmons imitation. I can't recall why I was so taken with Kiss. This was 5 years before their 1996 reunion tour, but every credit roll scrolled down my overextended tongue. I did look for the tapes in his apartment afterwards. He would certainly have kept them, but my aunt and uncle had already committed a full purge of anything film-related. In some oblique way, they blamed the movies. After Zoltan and his parents moved to Vancouver, we only saw each other sporadically during short summer visits and family celebrations before I went off to journalism school in Ottawa, and then to work in TV news in Toronto after a stint of freelancing for magazines. I didn't make it out west much anymore. When I did show up at a wedding a few years later, I finally figured out why a nice guy like Zoltan was so alarmingly single. He was too nice. He turned into the friend guy. The guy you went for coffee with at 2:30 a.m. after the accordion player in the klezmer punk band dumped you. The guy who assured you that you didn't look stupid in the faux fur jacket you spent too much on at the Aritzia warehouse sale. The guy you could go to a movie with who wouldn't think it meant anything other than going to see a movie. All women need a Zoltan. If he'd lived in Toronto, he would have been my Zoltan. After reconnecting, we remained close, with long confabs thanks to the advent of Skype and my cousin's email-enabled hypergraphia. Meanwhile, Zoltan yearned. What I never appreciated was just how deeply he yearned. He never told anyone else what had really happened to his hands. Maybe he confessed to me as I sat beside his hospital bed at St. Paul's in Vancouver because he thought it would make a good movie someday. I was in film by then, not in front of the camera anymore, not behind it either, but at the Ontario Film Development Corporation. I was 7.5 months pregnant, and the public sector maternity benefits were excellent. Zoltan told me he couldn't understand this Yvonne, this bony thing who had sat in front of him picking the offending prawns out of her pad thai and dropping them into a gap in the sidewalk beside their cafe table, her ankle bracelet clanking like a janitor's keyring every time she moved. The bindi on her forehead glittered red, then gold in the afternoon sun. From her belly button, hidden below the edge of the table and no doubt pooled with sweat, if Zoltan's was anything to go by, dangled a hand of Fatima on a thin platinum hoop. Now that I'm getting older, I'm learning to adorn myself more, she said, looking off across Commercial Drive where the protest of the day was getting started in Grandview Park. Skunky whiffs and hand-drumming wafted over to the patio. To Zoltan, she looked like someone who, in the right light, would still be asked for ID. And were the bindi and Fatima even...